cab community. Let's have a moment of silence in his memory. After that brief moment of silence, I would like to share the following with those of you who are in attendance. I knew Dale for a little over 1.5 years, and this is what Dale meant to me. A dedicated worker, team player, and most of all, a gentleman. He was thoughtful, selfless, and yes, indeed, Dale had a sense of humor. He provided input on key issues that caused you to rethink what we were attempting to originally accomplish. I will miss Dale's enthusiasm for just doggone getting it right. It was my good fortune to have known Dale. He made contributions to his community, and he touched so many of us. We at CAB will miss a friend and a valued colleague. Do any others wish to share comments? Not hearing any other comments, are there any other announcements to share with the board?
Crawford, this is Scott. If I could just say, beautifully put, by the way. I was on mute trying to speak to you just a second ago. Beautifully put, and our friend Dale will be missed by everybody, and you couldn't have said it any better. And what an anchoring figure in CAB, and what a great guy. So I'll just add that word and then we can move on.
Crawford, I was also just wanting to share my condolences for the loss of Dale, to his family, and yeah, to our whole CAB community. It's a great loss, and I also thank you for giving this space and this moment to to celebrate his contributions here and to remember him. And thank you so much. I'm seeing that there's an obituary in the chat that I'd love to read. So I had some other announcements, but I can go on mute to see if there was anybody else who wanted to speak regarding Dale.
Yeah, I liked. Go ahead, Terry.
Oh, thanks. I just wanted to say what an inspiration Dale was for me. He provided great leadership in our programs and services subcommittee. And I mean, talk about providing full public service right through your entire life. He made himself available and engaged in every minute that he could. And quite an inspiration. He'll be missed.
Are there any other comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that one thing I know I will miss the most from Dale is his hearty laugh. Crawford's right about his sense of humor. And for someone who was so committed and understood the importance of connecting issues across different areas. You know, he attended the Measure X meetings, he attended Measure X CAB meetings, the Council on Homelessness meetings, and was always faithful in participating in CAB. And so it just was on top, what is it, the Council on Aging as well. So he's so active, and he gave so much of his life to at least be a resource and provide input and perspective that I think across those various spaces in the county, we certainly needed. And, you know, he's just so welcome and such an invaluable member of our community. I'm grateful to have known him enough.
Are there any other comments before we move forward? None being heard, let's move to other announcements of items to be shared with our board.
This is Lila, and I have a couple of announcements, and I'll put some information in the chat. So I did see in the chat that it looks like there's no obituary yet for Dale, and that will be coming. A couple Rubicon related announcements. As many of you know, I work for Rubicon programs, and so I'd like to invite folks to come. Dale actually came to some of our stepping stones, and that was really wonderful to have him there. Next Friday, not this Friday, but next Friday at 9 a.m., we'll be celebrating folks who are completing our foundational workshops. And so I'll put the link and information in the chat, and we are looking at 101 Broadway for a financial coach again. So I will put the link to open positions within Rubicon programs in the chat. And this position has been particularly tricky for us to fill. So any networking that you all are interested in and able to do on our behalf would be greatly appreciative. Thank you, Crawford.
Thank you, Lila. Are there any other announcements from those in the public at large?
I have an announcement here from ORJ to CAB members. Just wanted to give you guys the heads up that we will likely be sending you all sort of two polls, if you will, coming up in preparation for our November meeting. The first is to poll you guys' interest in maintaining your membership for the next year. So we'll need to start planning for that if folks are anticipating resigning for any reason or what have you. Just want to make sure that we kind of have our ducks in a row for that. So you should expect an email on that. And then also we will be putting together a survey to gather your feedback on how you think CAB has been going for you for this year. Again, all of this is leading up to planning for next year. Some of the responses that we may receive from your survey may be incorporated in what we need to do in terms of our annual retreat or new member orientation and annual retreat that usually gets kicked off in the new year. So just be on the lookout. That will be coming soon, and we hope to get a real quick turnaround response because these things won't take you too long to complete. And Monique, I think you have the wrong agenda up.
Oh God, thank you. Sorry about that, you guys. Okay, let me get the right one. Just one second.
Might want to stop share for, yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Okay.
Well, you have the important one up.
Well, right, I just posted that one, so that was the first one I guess I saw. Sorry, general meeting. October.
And then while she's doing that, I see Jasmine also has an announcement.
Thank you, Patrice. Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to update you on some of the upcoming events that we have here at the RSC. We're going to have our next Alpha cohort starting on Monday, November 14th. And again, that's our 8-week program, our Thinking for Change curriculum with other organizations that come in and present their services. That'll be, again, starting November 14th. And then we also have our community activity night coming back on October 25th. And we get together with our members via Zoom, and it'll be hybrid, so they can come in person or attend via Zoom. We'll have a fun activity set up for them, either games or art project, things like that. We'll get together with them, have some raffles. It's just really fun and it's free. And then we also have our community green space cleanup happening on Saturday, this Saturday the 15th. And it's from 10 to 2, and we get together to beautify the park across the street from our center. We get together once a month, so it's been beautiful. You know, we started off, I think the first time with like 70 something bags, more or less. Now sometimes we have like 5 to 10 bags. So it's just been nice seeing the difference of how it started and how it's going. And so yeah, if you have anyone who may be interested, feel free to reach out. I will put my information in the chat so you all can contact me. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I have the correct agenda up now and I posted it in the chat. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Monique. Are there any other announcements to share with the board? Do you see any on your screen there, Monique?
I do not. I don't see any hands raised.
All right, then it will be appropriate to move then to item number 2 on our agenda. Is there public comment on any item under the jurisdiction of the Community Advisory Board and not on this agenda? Again, are there any comments prior to moving to our next agenda item?
Crawford, this is Lila. I was kind of on the fence if I would mention this now or later on during the Programs and Services Subcommittee update, but I would just like to let folks know that there is a San Francisco Reentry Council meeting happening on 10/20/22 from 10 to 12. And I'll be unavailable at that time. But if there are any folks who would be able to attend, Programs and Services has been interested in, connecting with other reentry councils. Yeah, I can put that information in the chat. Actually, if I'll put my email in the chat, and if anybody is able to attend that, I can forward along the event, the invitation for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Lila. Any other comments before we move to the next agenda item? Our next agenda item is item number 3, approval of record of actions from our previous meeting on September the 8th of 2022. Please refer to attachment 1, pages 4 through 7. I'm assuming that our CAB members have reviewed those items. If you could scroll through slowly there, thank you, Monique. And then after she completes scrolling through those agenda items, if we could have a motion for approval. Thank you, Monique. Is there a motion for approval?
This is Nicole Green. I motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Lenita Mims, I'll second.
Thank you, Lenita. Discussion by the board member, by any board members first? None being heard. Any discussion from the public or comments? Monique, would you kindly call the roll?
Yes. Crawford Carpenter,
Aye.
Nicole Green,
Aye.
Lila Blanchard,
I,
Scott Parsons,
Aye.
Mark Thomas. I'll come back to Mark. Lenita Mims,
Aye.
Terry Dunn,
Aye.
and then Mark Thomas.
Present.
Okay, so that's I for the record of
Aye.
action, right? So
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 yeses, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Monique. Our next agenda item, please go to item number 4, is to nominate a chair for the CAB Programs and Services Standing Committee. In accordance with Article 6, Section 2, and with the passing of Dale Harrington, I would like to nominate Lila Blanchard as the Chair of Programs and Services. Are there any other nominations in addition to the nomination of Lila Blanchard as the Chair of Programs and Services?
I would second that nomination if a second is needed.
Thank you so much, Terry, for the second. Is there any discussion by the board? Is there any discussion by the public at large?
this is Lila, and I just wanted to clarify that this is for, the end of this year. And so we're looking at, 1 to 2 more programs and services subcommittee meetings. Thank you, Crawford.
Exactly, and thank you for that clarification, Lila. No comments being heard. Would you please call the roll, Monique?
Okay. Crawford Carpenter,
Aye.
Nicole Green,
Aye.
Lila Blanchard,
I,
Scott Parsons,
Aye.
Mark Thomas,
Aye.
Lenita Mims,
Aye.
and Terry Dunn.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is item number 5, I believe. Yes, it is, which is basically to debrief on the September 16th CCP meeting regarding our recommendations. That was the policy recommendations. There were 2 revisions, and just as a matter of information, if you go to attachment 2, pages 8 through 11, we did make an updated recommendation on item number 2. And here, the recommendation is that they recommended the intention of using a victim-centered restorative justice practice approach when appropriate. So that was added and placed in that document. And Patrice, if you have some comments, I would appreciate that on that item. And then the second recommendation was for item number 5. And again, these are just cleanup items where grammar was corrected. And in this instance, what we did is they amended from availability and they changed the word to available. So again, these are what I would call cleanup items, and I just wanted to share those with you. Are there any comments regarding the cleanup items that were made? Patrice, from your office, or may we move forward?
I could chime in a little bit on this. So these items that were to be revised were from Programs and Services. Lila and the Programs and Services Committee suggested that, and it was a few meetings ago, and I had not updated it yet, so it's been updated now.
Monique, thank you for your comments. Thank you for the information from Programs and Services, and let's move forward then. We're now moving to agenda
I'm
item.
sorry. Did you have anything that you wanted to say to the CAB regarding our presentation of these policy recommendations to let's see, to the CCP? I'm sorry, the PPC. I often do that and flip those around.
It was an interesting process. Let's just put it that way. And I think we were prepared. That was you, myself, and Nicole. We were ready, but I think it was handled well by the county administrator's office. And basically, we were flies on the wall. And they did accept our recommendations, and we await to hear of how action will be implemented going forward. Any comments from you? You were there, Lila, or from Nicole? I believe you joined through that particular presentation. Any other comments?
No, my only comment is that was my first time attending. I thought it was great. The communication that was going back and forth, even though, yes, we were fly on the walls, but it was great to hear the conversation with the individuals that was on the call and having all that input in reference to our recommendations. So it was really nice.
I would just add that yes, it felt affirming that all 6 of the recommendations were taken into consideration, and that the focus of, our primary 3 was also lifted up. And, there was good discussion and comments on each one of the recommendations. And yeah, I was grateful to be there, and, grateful that it seemed like there was broad support, for each one of the recommendations.
And if I could just add, yeah, I was also grateful that they were well presented and well received. But I'll just say that I was frankly disappointed that you, Crawford, or someone from our committee was not able to present them. Our voice literally was, the audio portion of our voice was not heard, although our work was heard. We're grown-ups. We put a lot of time into preparing this, and again, on a very personal, perhaps even petty level, I would have preferred if we got to present our own recommendations.
Terry, I really thank you for your comments, and please be assured, Terry, that Lila, Nicole, myself, we were ready to present, but it just didn't happen that way, and we did go with the flow.
Yep, you got to do that. I understand, but just wanted to express my support for your ability to present.
And thank you so much. And maybe since this is a public hearing, that'll be the case next time around.
Yeah, and I see Jill's hand.
I was just going to say, any CAB members who are present are always welcome to raise their hand and comment on any item on the agenda. And in the past, that's what the CAB membership has done. A representative has usually been there to, say some things about it. And so that's always an opportunity. Every meeting is different depending on how it's run. And but I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that they were welcome to do that.
And it was almost like a mini CAB meeting there. I feel like most of the CAB group was there in support of that space. So thank you so much, Crawford, for, just kind of updating folks on that meeting in case folks weren't there.
You're quite welcome. Any other comments? And thank you, Jill. And thank you, Terry. Thank you, everyone. Any other comments prior to moving to the next item on our agenda?
Yeah, so I have a couple of things on this point here that I'd like to propose CAP to consider. So at the last CCP meeting, in addition to going through, well, at least on the agenda, there was to be a discussion of each of the CAP members, each of the policy recommendations from CAP, as well as a review of the fourth quarter financial reporting, which did not happen, and is likely will be put off for discussion for the next CCP meeting, which is scheduled for early November. Typically in November, the November CCP meeting is usually the budget workshop, which is the opportunity where CAP typically submits or presents their budget requests for the next fiscal year, which will be fiscal year 23-24. And then also typically further discussion on your policy recommendations. So if I can, Crawford, if you don't mind me taking the liberty to at least go over some of the responses I heard from CCP members on each of your recommendations. And hopefully that will tee up a conversation today of what sort of follow-up you would like to see in order to see some movement on the recommendations that were discussed.
Oh, please do so. Oh, please do so, Patrice.
So Monique, if you don't mind scrolling to the first recommendation. And for those that were there, again, I was trying to really quickly jot down notes. So if I may have missed some things that you may have heard, please feel free to share. So the first recommendation that was discussed had to do with continuing investments in a variety of housing services that would be specific needs within the reentry population. I think that there was overwhelming agreement that this is definitely something to look further into, particularly with the call out that in prior years, a lot of the housing that was provided via AB 109 resources have been through subcontracts with sober living environments, as well as emergency shelter beds, things of that nature. And so from what I heard was an idea of having a housing work group to potentially look at what are some other models that'd be worth investing in, particularly for this population. And our AODS chief, Fatima, did mention that just having SLEs alone is not going to work. In particular, if we're talking about housing individuals who may not have a substance use issue, but that's the only transitional housing that might be available to them. So certainly ORJ has been speaking of this for quite some time. Obviously, this correlates with you guys's with the results from you guys' survey. So I think there was certainly some support around developing what this plan for future investments might look like for specific housing models. At least that's what I heard. And I can pause really quickly if there were others that had any reactions to what was discussed on this particular recommendation.
This is Lila. Did I hear the word housing czar correctly? Did that come up as like either a work group or a person who, or did I pick that up somewhere else?
Yeah, I don't know if I heard czar. Jill has her hand up.
Because in my notes, it's me who said it.
Oh.
So I suggested, Paul suggested a work group to hone down on the housing piece, and I offered up a variety of different groups that could come together to really dig deep into this piece to determine, you know, behavioral health, H3, CalAIM work group, housing trust fund group. There's a whole bunch of groups together talking about housing, and so to really hone down on the justice involved population, I suggested that they really look at a work group to talk about the needs in that population. So I don't think czar, I didn't say czar, but yeah, housing work group of some sort, Paul suggested.
Okay, are there any other comments or reactions to that? Or what you may have heard?
Oh,
This
go
is
ahead.
Anita. I just have a question. If they decide to come up with a work group, will we have access to that work group?
I know in the past, when there have been either steering committees or what have you that have been formulated on certain items that were brought forth by CAB, typically CAB representation is usually a part of that. So I would anticipate, depending on who would be the lead for pulling this housing work group together, certainly I would presume that they would reach out to CAP to see who from the membership would like to have representation on that work group.
Okay, thank you.
This is Nicole. I had the same question. I'll piggyback after Lanita. My follow-up item would be more detail about how they're putting that work group together and where will the information be collected. It would be great if they do try to gather some of that information from the actual CBOs that's worked with housing. I think COVID has taught us a lot about housing and just try to see who's going to be all involved in reference to discussing the barriers or different type of housing that should be, how is that data is going to be created and how it's going to actually be structured. So that's one of the questions that I definitely would love to know.
Yeah, and if CAB members would like, you know, you certainly, from the suggestions that were made, I think you're well within your right to request some sort of follow-up or even to help shape shape even further some of the suggestions that were made. So if you're hearing the recommendation or staff's response to your recommendation for this one is to form a housing work group, how would you like that housing work group to be formed? What are the members that you feel like should be a part of it? Things like that. And I think they will certainly be open to your feedback on that. Okay, we can move on to the next recommendation, which focused on really expanding diversion and restorative justice programs. And there was some talk about, let's see, the need for, and this actually came from our public defender, Ellen McDonald, the need for more thorough review of the diversionary programs. This would be separate from restorative justice programming. And as you all know, through Measure X funding, Office of Reentry and Justice and our Probation Department, we are underway for developing a restorative justice initiative to look at where restorative justice programming is taking place and where there may be some gaps that can be filled. But certainly what was brought up was that there was a lack of understanding really how diversionary programs are, or diversion programs, not how they're working, but where they all exist. And then, yeah, ultimately, if they're meeting a specific need and what are the outcomes of that and things of that nature.
And just to add to that, Ellen said that she'd have more information next month. So I think at the November CCP meeting on that issue.
Did any CAB members or members of the public have any reactions to what was discussed on this item? One thing I will note is that, and it's the last line here in the recommendation, that there was not a lot of conversation around RJ programming in the detention facilities. So if that is still of interest to any of you, I think that would be certainly something really important to point out. Okay. All right, the next recommendation, which focused on ensuring that there is a racial equity lens and cultural competency and responsiveness in our reentry programs and services. What I heard, and I jotted down a really quick note, it certainly is not all encompassed, does not completely encompass the full conversation, but I did have here the desire to wait for the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice to open, to really give them the opportunity to see how they'll be shaped and in what ways then will the reentry programs may or may not fall, not necessarily fall under their purview, but in what ways will that office sort of lend its support to helping develop an equity lens for our reentry programs. Were there any other thoughts or comments you guys heard or wanted to speak to on this one? Okay, we can move on to the next recommend number 4, which focused on supporting developing a data strategy to improve data collection, analysis, and evaluation of programs. And the one thing that came up was because ORJ has been actively involved in receiving support and consultation from CSAC, which is the California State Association of Counties, on a number of different data related projects, that this might be a really great opportunity for us to sort of highlight what that work has been over the course of a couple of years. So that will sort of help tee up further discussion around how do we come up with this data strategy. So that's more of bringing forth more information as to what's been done up to this point and where we can go next.
Patrice, did Denise say that the ORJ is preparing a 10-year trend report for AB 109?
At this, I don't recall if that was mentioned at the CCP meeting.
It was.
But yeah, but that's happening.
It's in my notes, so she said it.
Yeah, so yeah, and then that's which we shared here before too, that our office is preparing a 10-year trends analysis of AB 109 as a look back and again setting us up for what to look forward to in the future. Okay, if nothing else, we can go to number 5. Which was a priority area or one of the recommendations that you all really prioritized, which is increasing targeted supports for individuals who are justice system involved and also experiencing disabilities. And this one, I think, also had quite a bit of robust conversation. Lynn Mackey, who's our superintendent of, is it superintendent of county school? I can't remember the exact term.
Contra Costa County Office of Ed Superintendent.
Yeah, so head of County Office of Ed.
Yes.
But she in particular was very interested in this item. And I believe, Jill, you mentioned a regional center that will find the nexus between, and I don't know if I got this right, Cal AIM and or something else.
Do you want me to explain it?
Yeah.
Do you want me to just give give a little
Sure, go ahead.
elevator pitch there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Lynn raised, I suggested that there be discussion with the regional center because they, they're the state organization that provides funding to the disability network, those people who have any kind of disability. So they're regional center clients, which is separate from the county. And Lynn, who is the superintendent of the County Office of Education, but understanding that is not a county office, it's just called that. It is a separate entity run by a whole trustee board. So they work in concert with the county, but they're not a county department. She was concerned, and I think there wasn't enough clarification on this, about the combining, providing services to those with both mental health and SUD, and that somehow this item was excluding those. And my point was that I think Cal-AIM is going to address that issue of the dual diagnosis. And this is really more a specific issue of those people who are regional center clients or potential regional center clients getting services in the county structure, because there's some disconnect there. So I hope that clarified.
Yes. So from what I heard, at least, is that Jill, you were going to send Paul a contact over at the East Bay Regional Center. And then I do know that Lynn really emphasized that any further development on this piece, she would really like to be a part of that conversation.
And I did. Yeah, we have a developmental disabilities council in the county. And so I've shared him with him that information and that contact person.
Okay. Any comments or reflections from CAB members or members of the public that were there on this item? Okay, and then the last one really focused on expanding employment opportunities within the county for individuals who are justice system involved. And there was a lot of discussion about how Alameda County attempted to do something similar, of launching an initiative that would create some sort of a pathway for folks to be employed with the county. And I guess they experienced, because there's obviously some department heads who came from Alameda County, they shared what may have been some potential hiccups around that, but certainly that at least it is worth involving our county's HR department, as well as our workforce development board, to see what is possible. I know Tamia Brown was interested. Jill, you spoke about CalWorks as a potential model. So no one from the HR department was present for that meeting, but again, I'm assuming that what will come from this is again a similar work group as was discussed around the housing issue, to see what's possible and how far we can go with this.
Well, and Patrice, you're leaving out the other piece. Sorry, Nicole, but just to add on to that, Issa shared that she's creating a new job classification for those with lived experience. So she started the ball rolling.
Yes, we are creating positions here called community associates. So yes, thank you. I'm leaving out our own stuff. All right, Nicole.
Well, I'm sorry, I was trying to get off mute. I had something for recommendation 5 and 6, but I'll start with 6. I'm really excited about actually both of those, especially number 6. And I love the fact that we're looking at discussions from other CBOs, as well as I know one recommendation that CAB was at, well, not a recommendation, but we're asking as CAB is how to get feedback from individuals that's actually been justice involved, to talk about their experience from employment, like to really hear from the community. So I really love to see what we're doing with this recommendation. I'm glad that there's so many things being put in place to help individuals get employment. But I still feel like there's like the things are put in place, but there still is a gap on actually what happens when they apply for a job. And so how do we look at those things and actually dig deeper to examine what people experience with a background when they're applying for employment? And then for recommendation 5, I don't know, and I'm sorry. In my opinion, I really would love to see what happens with that one as well. It'll be nice to have a work group with that one too, because when it comes to disabilities, in my opinion, I think all of everyone has experienced it from a housing perspective, from employment perspective. There's so many different avenues that needs to be looked into for justice involved individuals when they are released that's dealing with disabilities. They have a lot of limitations to them. So I would really like to see where that recommendation goes. So recommendation, of course, number one, you know, that housing for me, number 5 and number 6. I really would like to see some follow-ups with those. I know that we've had them as recommendations, I won't say for a while, but we've been talking about these things. So I would love to see some action in place and we start talking about developing and strategies and how we can move forward going on in the next year. So, but that's my little feedback.
Scott has his hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a hooray to the fact that victim incentives were added to this, or victim oriented. I forgot the exact words because it's not on this page, but it was earlier. I think that's so important that we keep that. And so, okay, here it is. We recommended the intention of using a victim-centered restorative justice practice. Boy, that just warms my heart to see that. So that's a hooray from this part of the county. How's that?
So I would say that pretty much covered what the responses were from both staff and from CCP members on your recommendations. So from this point, as I mentioned, we have 2 more CCP meetings left for this year, the November budget workshop and then the December final meeting, where the executive committee of the CCP will then approve budget recommendations to then send over to PPC and then ultimately for full board approval. So those 2 meetings I feel are opportunities for CAB to, and certainly you don't have to wait for those meetings. You can always communicate directly with Paul Reyes from the CAO's office about next steps around any of these. And I have not heard of what would be on the agenda for November, but certainly the bulk of the conversation will be on developing the AB 109 budget and reviewing the budget requests from all funded agencies, including CAB's requests. So I think if we, again, Crawford, I know we're running on a lot of time on this, but I think it's really important that CAB have an opportunity to talk about what you would want to see in terms of next steps from these recommendations. And then also where are you guys thinking around a budget request to be included in CCP's review as they prepare for next year's AB 109 budget.
Well, Patrice, thank you. And I believe you've kind of given us a roadmap for our next 2 meetings. We can further kind of sift, what is the old expression, sift and winnow here through this information and see what our next steps will be. And we can be getting back to you, or we'll get back to you shortly.
Okay, and even if there's, just to keep in mind, your next CAB meeting will happen after the November 4th CCP meeting, where budget requests will be reviewed and talked about. So we really have between now and then, really like now and probably the next couple of weeks to decide what direction you want to go in. I can share with you all what you requested last year as a refresher. You all submitted a budget requests, or ORJ submitted on your behalf a budget request of a 3% COLA increase. So it's essentially a status quo request with a 3% COLA increase every year for the next 3 years for all the community programs, because they were all entering into a new 3-year contract cycle. So the next, in preparing for the next fiscal year, it would technically be the second year of that 3-year window. So, and in addition, so that's only just for the community programs, but in addition to that, if based on your recommendations here, you'd like to see an increase in funding in certain areas, because there's a lot of, your recommendations are really calling for increase of certain services, expansion of certain services, things of that nature. Staff and CCP members' responses have been, let's formulate work groups, let's plan around it, things like that. So if there's any additional funding that you'd like to see, it'd be a good time to kind of talk through that, that you would want to share for the November CCP meeting. And then I see Jill has her hand up.
And I just wanted to clarify, because I don't know why I can never remember 100%, but so is the November meeting really more about Paul presenting what the AB 109 budget looks like and what the reserves look like, and if there's going to be any increases or decreases, in past budget years when they've been tight, they've, had to have a 10% cut across the board. I don't think we're in that position this year. Also understanding the county departments will be adding in 5% COLAs for this next year, because that's the majority of the unions settled at 5% COLA. So it's just I don't know that the November meeting is a budget ask. Isn't it more of a budget overview, and then December, the presentations for the actual asks? Is that my recollection, Patrice? Is that correct?
It's usually a little bit of both. So there's an overview of what the projections would be for the next year, and also a review of all of the requests. And so then by December, so that's all the requests are then talked about at November, in case there's a need to make any edits or adjustments for the final December meeting, where they make a final review and final vote. So that's why the November one is, and typically we would have, I know we're at, today's day is October 13th. Typically we would have received the budget request instructions and the templates and all of that, but that has not gone out yet. And so, and unfortunately, that's why there's nothing included in here to even see what the instructions will be for this year. But I do want to be sure we tee you all up, and we have been for quite a few months discussing these things, particularly in policy and budget and programs and services subcommittee, preparing for this time of the year where you're preparing your budget requests as well as your recommendations.
So normally at this meeting, they would be approving a proposed budget, but it's not happening right now. So I'm just wondering if there's a consideration to have a special meeting of CAB so that there could be an approval of a budget, because you don't really need to have the budget numbers. I think it's good enough to say there's surplus. So you all can figure out what it is that you want to ask, regardless of seeing what those budget numbers are. I do not believe there'll be any cuts this year. And you all know what your budget is. You've seen it before, and you've done this survey to evaluate where people, boots on the ground, need more money or support. So I'm wondering, because otherwise ORJ, I guess, is just going to create the budget out of what's been said in the past.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that this conversation is happening here. It's Lila again. So we still have a little bit more time in our programs and services subcommittee to like rehash this and come up with the budget. Is that correct? I guess that's a question. Yeah.
Let's see, you guys are scheduled on the, what date is you guys this meeting?
Next Thursday, the 20th.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a couple ways that you, if really at the heart of your question, Lila, is, okay, how can we do this given the existing CAB subcommittee meetings that we currently have? One thing that CAB can do and has done in the past is that at this meeting, CAB can decide to essentially approve in advance whatever subcommittee you want to do the deliberation of whatever those budget numbers will be, and say, we'll go with the recommendation of that subcommittee. And then that way, that subcommittee can then meet on it. You can develop, come up with your, whatever will be your budget request, vote on it, and then we here at ORJ will put it all together to submit to CAO's office to include the CCP packet. That's one way to go about it. There's also, as Jill was mentioning, we could pull together a special meeting. We could do that as well. And in the interim, between now and that special meeting, we can receive from either the chairs or from individual CAB members what you would like to see for the budget, and put something together for you guys to discuss at that special meeting.
Thank you. That was really helpful. I feel like where it comes to is like, how do we ask for money, or where do we ask for more money from, given that we're kind of handed down this budget with existing numbers. And so, yeah, I, hope that we'll be able to, provide more input at the next policy and budget subcommittee on the budget specifically. I'm not sure if any other CAB policy and budget subcommittee members or CAB members have want to weigh in on this.
Thank you, Lila. I was actually trying to get off mute. Our next meeting is on the 21st, and our goal should be to review the previous recommendations, and at that time just decide if we want to move things around or leave it as is. I had the same question that you had, but I believe in our meeting we will be. I like what you already said. We don't have to worry about the numbers, but I believe we will have that information from the last budget on there to review. I did want to ask you a question, Patrice, because you just gave us two options. Did you want us to pick? Because I really liked when you said special meeting, where, we all look at the budget, come up with our ideas, either, me and Crawford bring that to us and we have a special meeting, or is that something that you want us to decide which one we want, or?
Can I just jump in here before you?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No. I'm interrupting you because I just got information that might be helpful to this discussion.
Okay.
So Paul is sending out the budget documents now, and the next meeting of CCP has been scheduled for November 18th, which gives a little bit more breathing room. Yeah.
Okay. So that's a reschedule. Okay, because it was originally scheduled for November 4th. Well, then hey, we all can breathe. So then that means, let's look at our calendars really quickly. That would then mean if each subcommittee wanted to weigh in on this, or at the very least, policy and budget and programs and services, we can certainly make sure that happens on the 20th and the 21st. And begin to pull together a draft budget requests based on the feedback that we hear from you guys, and have it presented at the next full CAB meeting for discussion and vote, which would be on
November 10th.
November 10th, sorry, thank you, which would be on November 10th. Based on the action you take on the 10th, that would mean we will have to really quickly turn around. I think we can make it happen at least that day, to have it included in the CCP agenda that will take place for the 18th. Okay, so we'll have a pretty quick turnaround.
And then I would just add to that you need to look at the CAB meeting that would be on the 18th normally would then conflict with CCP. So you probably either want to cancel or reschedule that policy and budget committee meeting.
Maybe we can move it to the 25th. Monique?
Yes, I'll look at the calendar.
Okay.
If you'd like to change it, I can.
Wait,
check
that's
the
when
calendar.
is
That's the day
That's
after
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
yeah, I'm like, wait a minute, isn't it a holiday that month? Well, let's go with your race choice. We may have to.
Well, we can figure out scheduling offline for that one.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm sure you still want to have that meeting set to debrief whatever was discussed at the November meeting, at the November CCP meeting, in preparation for the final vote that the CCP Executive Committee will have on the AB 109 budget. I'm guessing he's going to keep it at early December, or he may move it then again. But in any case. Okay, how do folks feel about that process?
Okay with it.
Okay, and I will also encourage you guys to look at September's CCP meeting agenda where the fourth quarter report was included. Just to kind of get you a little bit familiar with how things transpired this current or past fiscal year in preparation for your budget discussions. Okay, and Crawford, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, before we move to the next item, this is terribly important. One more chance. Any other comments, concerns, pluses, minuses? This is terribly important again. Any other comments before moving forward?
Lila has her hand raised.
Okay, Lila, please.
Thank you, Crawford. Thank you, Monique. So just one thing that I, like to say about, that added line about victim-centered restorative justice. And, I just want to highlight that I like that many of our recommendations work together. And we have this racial justice, focused recommendation. And, a lot of victims are people of color, and just want to lift up, that victim-centered approach, should be applied to all victims, and, support, victims through what they're experiencing as well. So thank you for letting me say that additional piece in this space. I don't know if I had mentioned that before, because I was, advocating to have that sentence added in there, and I just wanted to, add in that piece.
All is good, Lila. Thank you. Any other comments? The floor is still open.
Crawford, I just wanted to mention that we have 45 minutes. That's just a time check, just for your consideration. We still have a number of items to talk about.
All right. Well, let's move then to item number 6 on our agenda. Just want to share briefly some information with you. And this is going to be just a reference to the end of the year annual reports. Each year, we have an annual report which is prepared by ORJ. This reference is to get a head start so we don't leave standing committee chairs and the ORJ scrambling at the end of the year. The areas that our standing committees should address are A, to describe activities for the past year, including areas of study, work, special events, collaborations, etc. B, describe the accomplishments for the past year, particularly in reference to your work plan. C, describe your membership in terms of seat vacancies, diversity, level of participation, and frequency of achieving a quorum at meetings. And then finally, D, describe the advisory body's work plan, including specific objectives to be achieved in the upcoming year. In other words, forward thinking, forward looking. Please address the above subject items in your next standing committee meetings. And by the way, it probably feels like, oh my goodness, this is a tremendous amount of work. No, it isn't. This can be done by simply going to the Agenda Center and reviewing your notes from each of your past monthly meetings. I did this last year, and my first reaction is, oh my God, I'll never get this done. And then it suddenly dawned on me, go to that doggone Agenda Center, which I did, and it's basically laid out for you to respond to the 4 categories that I gave you. You can do that by going through the notes from your past monthly meetings. Any comments? May I move to the next agenda? Oh, yes.
I'd just like to add in terms of process. So we are requesting that, especially from the chairs, that you guys submit really just in bullet form to Crawford, and then we will work with Crawford on the final that will be submitted to the clerk of the board. So please don't beat yourself up trying to figure out how do I put together a formal report. We will handle that on the back end. We just want to get a collection from what you've gathered for over the course of the year, some of the great accomplishments and the work that you guys have done.
Thank you, Patrice. And let me add one other thing for the standing committee chairs. If you would like, give me a call and I'll walk through it with you. We'll do it hand in hand, if that helps. Any other comments? We're now moving to item number 7. We want to discuss the ambassador assignments. And this is basically kind of a heads up. And I just wanted to remind each of you that the clock is running, the clock is ticking. Some of you might have found it difficult to reach certain offices and individuals. It's difficult, more than likely, to get on their schedules. Now, I hope you see why we've been pushing for an early start with our ambassador program. If any of you are running into roadblocks, please contact Patrice, Monique, or me, and we will do our level best to assist you. So I just wanted to basically give everybody the heads up. And so far, I hope things are moving smoothly. Are there any comments or questions?
Yeah, and I also like to offer up that you have quite a few staff on the call today. So if any of you are having any trouble setting up meetings with your assigned office, it would be good to share that now in case a staff member can help you.
This is, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So this is Lanita. I first want to say I apologize to Lila and Ozzy because I have been unavailable due to my new job in scheduling anything. And today or yesterday, I was granted the opportunity to use my work time for CAB meetings and subcommittee meetings. So now I don't have any challenges for the meeting schedule. So I'm open and available for whenever you guys would like. All I ask is that we try to do it at least a week out so I can put it in my calendar, because they do require me to load my calendar once a week.
Oh, go ahead, next person.
I just have a quick question, and I'm sorry, Crawford, if you said this. So it looks like we're going to go past that date. I know Monique, I emailed you about that. Is that because I did reach out. I don't have any issues, but I did have the person I'm assigned to reach back out to me today, asking me for more detail in reference to what it was for. So I did go back and utilize the guide that Monique provided to kind of give. I mean, it's a section there that kind of breaks down. They wanted to know the background and our purpose. So I took that and I sent that email this morning. So I haven't been able to schedule an exact date yet with Mark. I'm working with Sarah. I did reply to her this morning. I did give her some dates. So I'm just waiting to hear back for the dates for me and Joe to be able to complete ours. But me and Crawford already have ours set for, it's next week, right, Crawford?
You and I.
We're ready to go.
We're raring to go. And just to follow up, Lenita, please rest at ease. You are covered. Ozzy and I have already had our discussion. I was going to be your second. Based on your comments, no need for me to be your second. And we have your script already developed. You should be raring to go. If you'll get back to me after this meeting, we'll get you right in the loop.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Any other comments on the ambassador program? And again, now this is just a heads up. I think we're going to be in good shape. Any other comments?
We have Scott and Lila. Their hands are raised. I'm not sure who's first.
Go ahead, Lila.
Okay, your hand was definitely up first. Just a question of when we'll be incorporating the notes from the ambassador meetings that have already happened, if that will be over the next couple months. I'm excited to hear how those are going for folks.
Lila, if you've already completed a meeting, you have your packet that Scott's group put together. Follow that packet, get your notes summarized, and get those to Patrice and to Monique.
Sounds good. And they'll be included in the agenda for November and December?
Yes, as they are, again, presented to Patrice and Monique so they can get them in the agendas. Yes.
Great. Sounds good. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Would you check the screen, please, Monique? Has anybody else raised their hand?
Scott?
Well, I just wanted clarity again, because I have a little bit of a struggle on one of them. And in terms of getting return contact, is it Monique, you that I reach out to, or Patrice?
You can reach out to me and I'll confirm what the contact information is. And if it isn't updated, I can provide you with the correct contact.
That's super. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And Scott, just curious, is this with the courts?
Yes.
Okay. All right, yeah, I'll connect with Monique in the event that if in the event you're still having issues, then we'll work something out to make sure that
perfect. And the other one, I expect no issues. I just realized this new that I'm the lead now, so I have some work to do, and that's fine.
Yeah, so Scott,
yes, you're watching it.
contact Lori Byers in our office. She's the scheduler for Candace, and she'll get you on the schedule.
Lori Byers, thank you.
And Candace is doing both Zoom and in-person meetings, whatever you prefer.
Excellent. Thank you.
Any other questions? We've got about what time check here? We're got about a half hour. Can we move to the next agenda item, which would be item number 8? There's been a discussion of lived experiences from our various CAB members as it relates to AB 109 services. Are there any CAB members who wish to open this discussion? If not, we'll move to the next agenda item. However, if we do have this discussion, let's try to limit it to a maximum of 10 minutes. Or better yet, 7.
Crawford, I would like to
Thank
go to item number 8. I have a question though. When we say continue discussion, are we picking up from where we left off last? I know the last time we talked about lived experiences from CAB members, it was a reference to the employment piece and discussing having individuals actually like with lived experiences being able to come to full CAB and talk about barriers or what they may have experienced once released in reference to trying to get employment. Or is that where can you elaborate more on number 8?
I believe that's where we are. I should say, I believe that is where we are. Let's talk about, and maybe our step forward needs to be, let's identify through some of the experiences of those that are working in that area with those with lived experience or those who have actual lived experiences. Let's talk about what do we need? What specific services? And let's be specific and not talk in generalities. For example, do we need transportation? Do we need cell phones? Do we need computers? On and on. Let's be specific. And maybe that'll help focus, give us a more laser focus moving forward.
So I think that is a good idea to focus on that part of what the needs are as well. But this was something that was dear to me and Dale's heart. We had a call about this and he had so many good ideas in reference to the employment. I'm definitely going to miss him for this part. But one of the key things we definitely wanted to do, because constantly we talk about change and we talk about things that people live experience, what people would live experience, what they go through. The whole focus and goal was to be able to actually bring individuals. And a lot of us that's on the CAB community right now have lived experience to talk about in reality what our experiences were, which can help us figure out what was needed. So that was step 1, is to be able to bring them or anyone that wants to speak up to a full CAB to just talk about from that time they released, what did they experience? What was the hiccups? What did they have to go through in efforts to get employment? There's so many things out there, abandoned box and all those, great things that we're putting in place, but in reality, I'll talk about myself. In reality, it's not like that. So for myself, what I was asking for is we are here at CAB to make a change. It's finally time to hear from the people with the experiences. We can't make a change if we really don't know. We're guessing at it. Ask the person that's actually going through it. So that's where me and Dale left off, is how do we invite people, or do we start with people from CAB? I am somebody with lived experiences. So I have no problem with talking about from the day they let me out. So how did I get in this seat right now? And what then barriers were that I faced getting into this seat? Because it wasn't easy. So that was what we were trying to bring to CAB, but how do we do that? And where do we start? And that's where we left off. So I guess my question would be, what would be the next step? So what subcommittee would be used to discuss that? How do we want to tailor that to bring that back to CAB? Because I would love to finish it out, especially, for something towards me, for Dale. So it can make me go just thinking about him right now. So
might we maybe make this step? Could we first start with those on CAB? Let's start with those on the CAB board. So maybe, and I'm thinking now, I could be wrong here and correct me someone, maybe start with programs and services. Let's get a list of CAB members who have lived experiences. Let's get their input. And then the next step, maybe we see if we can get with those members who have either just been brought back to society or re-entering. let's get in touch with some of those, maybe through our CBOs, or is there a mechanism to get in touch with those who are within 30 to 60 or 90 days of re-entering into society and ask them, what do you need? So maybe we start with ourselves first. We had the idea, so by George, let us step up to the plate first. Just a suggestion.
I definitely agree with you on that. Maybe later we could do a poll of just across the board, how many of us that are on CAB have lived experiences, to get an idea of how many. I know there's a few of us. And then I worked for, I almost forgot where I work, you guys. I really did. I'm about to say I work for CAB. I work for Game Plan for Success, and I know that Monique has been reaching out to our league, Jana. We do work with individuals before they are released. I think that is a good start in reference to people wanting to speak out. And also, I think it's great to go to our CBOs because they work with individuals right now. So especially like RSC and Rubicon, they have those people around constantly to kind of figure out if there's anyone that would like to come talk about it. I have personally been talking to people about CAB, getting the word out there that, it's for the public to join, if they want to know more about it. And I've talked to a lot of individuals that are either still incarcerated or released that really want to speak about the barriers that they experience, not to have that kind of call of, oh my God, I don't get help, but really just talk about what they experience from when they walk out the door. And maybe that can help us figure out how to make, certain recommendations and budget changes. So I think those are great ideas. I'm raising my hand for it. And yeah.
May I suggest, Mike, you get with Lila and let's lay out how you want to move forward.
Okay.
And I'd be more than pleased to assist the three of us. If the three of us want to do it, let's do it offline and just lay it out and get moving.
So
Yeah.
can I,
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Lenita, if that was you.
yeah, that was me. So can I also put a plug in for family members? Because there are a group of people here in California, actually, the group has expanded now past Contra Costa County, where they are going to be receiving their loved ones home, and they would like to know what they can expect or what to do or how to put things in place. And so one of the groups that I sit with, I have started trying to get people who have just come home and have had, 30, 60, 90 days home to partner with the ones that are going to be released soon so that they don't have to walk it alone. Because we as family members, me as a wife, I don't know. I mean, I know the physical aspect of it where I can, he has a cell phone and an iPad and all of those things, but in terms of mentally and emotionally, I'm not sure how to help that right now. So it would also, so I guess what I'm asking is that to partner with you who have the lived experience, who want to put this subject together, to also allow us as family members to be a part of that.
Lenita, you just joined the group. Next.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. Hey, hey, we're all in here. Okay. Any other comments? Thank you, Lenita. Now we're running up on our time limit that we set for this. I think we know what we're going to do, how we're going to approach it. Lenita, Nicole, Lila, and I'll help if you desire, but if the three of you want to run with the ball, go for it. How's that? And
That's perfect. So we can have we can do a meeting.
Well, let's figure out what, again, double check to make sure you're not on committees which would impact quorum.
Yeah.
That's the only thing we'll have to be concerned about, and get with Monique on that.
I was gonna say, yeah, I'll just follow with Monique afterwards.
Yeah, follow up there. Okay.
One quick,
All right.
one quick, addition to that, and I see Jamie Jeanette is on, and I don't know if she's still on listening, but I do want to highlight how H3 has done a really great job. Hey, Jamie, of coming up with different strategies to also gather input and feedback from folks who are unhoused or experiencing homelessness or have experienced homelessness. So can you just really quick share what some of those strategies have been as just some potential ideas for members to consider?
Absolutely. So thank you, Patrice. Yeah, this is something we're trying to focus on even more in this coming year as well. So a few just best practice pieces are making sure that you have stipends for people as you're engaging them and connecting with them. And, you know, if you're doing a focus group or you're doing surveys, when you're engaging, at least in homeless services, when you're engaging somebody with lived experience, it's really best practice to compensate people for their time. I actually have, we use constant contact as our way of communicating with people, and I have started tagging people as they let me know or participate in meetings. If they have a lived experience of homelessness, I now have a whole sub list so that I now have a group of people that I can reach out to. We have done things in person in terms of focus groups, but we've also tried to do things remotely. I think if you're going to do things remotely, if you can work with your partner providers. So for example, you know, if you hold something like work with Rubicon or work with libraries, for example, so people can get online, because that can really be a challenge, I think, for all of our folks that we're working with. They don't necessarily have stable access to internet, to computers, to smartphones. But I'm also really happy to have one-on-one conversations with people or start to invite folks from your team to some of our planning and thinking and strategies around that. Patrice, if there are specific questions about how we do other things, I'm happy to. Oh, the other thing I'll mention is, so on our Council on Homelessness, we have 3 seats that are designated specifically for people with lived experience. And we've been doing a lot of capacity building with those folks so that when we do, for example, have a focus group or we have those folks trained and facilitating. So it's not staff that's doing that leading of the meetings or, you know, asking the sometimes really sensitive questions. We're building capacity for people in leadership that have lived experience so that they can take on those roles. I could go on about this forever, but that's my short version.
I'll say like Crawford, I think you just added yourself to their team.
Yes, Patrice, I was just about to raise my hand and say, Jamie, can I take you up on that?
No, I'm really happy you're here to share that, because we get all your great emails and the ways in which you guys are trying to connect with folks with lived experiences. And I just knew I had to take the opportunity to make sure you're able to share that with us. So thank you. Thank you.
Hey, so wonderful that you're joining us, and by George, maybe other people in positions such as yours can join and participate. And, you know, now that we've kind of got you on the hook, maybe the next thing is in the future, hopefully you can make a presentation either to CAB or one of our subcommittees.
I would love to. That's my favorite thing. I'm happy to sort of give you the landscape of our homeless system of care and some of the different work we're doing. And it's been on my agenda to try and come to these meetings and plug in better. We finally are staffed up so I can do that. So hopefully you will see me more and more.
Jamie, am I glad that you joined us? We had another individual that joined us and put his toe in the water. So hey, be careful. Jamie, thank you. Let's move to our next agenda item. Wait a minute. I don't want to move too quickly. Can we move to the next agenda item, Nicole?
Hey, Crawford.
Oh, yes.
Before you move on, I'm sorry, I jumped on late, everybody. Coming from an in-person meeting. Everybody's meeting in person now. But I do have a question, and maybe it could allude towards maybe some of the information that Jamie just shared. Patrice also can, I can share this information as well. But I just want to think around the aspect of preventive aspects to this type of this type of area. And what I mean by that is collaborating with entities that's trying to prevent, like before the incarceration component coming to existence. So there's some programs that works with youth, also transitional programs that works with youth to help them, with homelessness, getting off the street, preventive type skills and tools and features to help them not go into incarceration. Programs such as, I think I shared with Patrice a while back, maybe emailed it, but in Contra Costa, West Contra Costa, they have a program called Law Day. And what they do is once a year, they bring the youth from the high schools, and they bring in the law enforcement, they bring in attorneys, they bring in even judges to speak about help these individuals, want to encourage them to go to law school or understand the law on the streets and build capacity of social capital with law enforcement in their neighborhoods. But these programs are, as such, in West Contra Costa, it's been going on for about 5 or 6 years now. And when I got wind of it, I'm like, well, why aren't you presenting in CAP, just to, give us some of that information? But this is kind of the pre, not the post. So I don't know how much of that is embedded within ORJ or could be embedded within some of the CBOs that has work that's being done for the formerly incarcerated or those who are coming out that's been homeless. How could that be a crossover to collaborate with preventive skills and features for these individuals, youth, to keep them out of going in that direction versus it being post? I just want to pose that question, put it on the table, Crawford.
Dr. Cole, thank you so much. You've got one more item now, Nicole, to see, does that fit in to what we want to do, or maybe where is that in our sequence of events? What Dr. Cole just mentioned. So maybe we can determine that also.
If I may, before Nicole jumps in, to Dr. Cole's point, we do have a Juvenile Justice Coordinating Council here in our county, and we actually have our newest CAB member, Reverend Van Hook, is actually a member of that council as well. So in that space, we talk quite a bit about programs and services that are not only interventions for young people that are justice system involved, but then also are focused on prevention for youth who might be at risk of justice system involvement. And I'd also like to share that we're really, really excited about our most recent partnership with the Antioch Community Foundation, where through a large, well, I said a large sum, it's about 100,000 from the probation department to the Antioch Community Foundation has an open grant cycle now for mini grants for smaller organizations that serve in young people in East Contra Costa to do some of this work that you're actually talking about. So, and we hope to do more of that in the other regions of the county, but this is our first go at it. And I'm actually going to post in the chat next week's meeting. Is a full council meeting, so and it starts at 3:30. So if any of you are interested, you're more than welcome to attend. It's a public meeting, and full membership, and our supervisor, Candace Anderson, is the supervisor representative on that one.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrice. Thank you, Dr. Cole. We should we should move on, because we've got other agenda items we have to attend to.
Before you move on, Crawford, I was going to say I definitely agree, and it falls in line. I'm very excited about that, especially with all the youth, the DT population that I see in here with me on a daily basis. It fits right in line with that.
Perfect.
And I'm done.
Hey, they've laid out your doggone talking points in your agenda darn near there, Nicole and Lila and Lanita. Okay, let's move. Item number 9. We have certain committee reports, external meetings, etc. In order to respect our time constraint, and again, we may go 3, 4, 5 minutes over. Let's not get hung up over that. let's start with, if by chance, Jill, you would be kind enough to comment on anything from our Board of Supervisors.
I would, and I will make it quick. On September 13th, the Board of Supervisors did receive a report on Stand Together, determined that the extra funding request cannot be funded by AB $109. It doesn't comply with the legislation. And it was suggested by Supervisor Anderson that Stand Together might want to look at becoming a nonprofit so that they could benefit from more grant funding to support that program. Then on September 20th, they approved the plan for the MX funded or the Measure X funded Housing Trust Fund. And so I shared an email with Patrice and Monique to share with the CAB group about another meeting on that to go over the different funding sources and what will be funded through that. And there was a report from Isa, our probation chief, regarding the future of the Boys Ranch out in Byron. And it's, I think, important for this group to know because not all of our youth are under 18. And so therefore they are reentering society, especially with the closure of the Department of Juvenile Justice. So you will have young adults coming out of that system who will be re-entering as well. So the plan is to really discuss closing the ranch and making the people make more in-community programming for those youth to engage in that would otherwise be placed at the ranch, to keep them in home if possible and have the wrap services in community rather than incarcerating them. The Board of Supervisors approved continuing hybrid meetings. We're waiting for the piece of legislation that is sitting on the governor's desk to be signed, which will dictate what we do going forward with our meetings. On October 25th, there will be a presentation by the working group that's been working on the Office of Reentry and Social Justice, which is a community working group who will come and do a presentation on what their recommendation is, that the structure of the Office of Reentry, or I'm sorry, Racial Equity and Social Justice. We'll get it right, Patrice, I swear, one of these times. What that will look like, and the Board of Supervisors will be making decisions on that, which is super exciting for all of us who have been working with the Racial Justice Oversight Body and have been frustrated with the lack of ability to analyze data. So more to come on that. And that concludes my report.
Thank you so very much. Scott, do you have anything on PPC meetings?
I do not. The meeting was canceled, so there was nothing for me to report on there. Going to the next item, Outreach and Community Engagement Subcommittee meeting. We had a good meeting, and I'm going to ask you, Crawford, for a point of order here. I see I underneath that bullet point, and that is the consideration of Evan Decker, who received unanimous support from OCEC. I believe he's in attendance at this meeting. Is this where he can introduce himself?
Why don't we move right to that? Or you know what, maybe we should do first. Go over, just give us the bullets, maybe 2 or 3 bullets of your meeting for OCEC. Then we will move to, as part of that, the application for Evan Decker. How's that?
Okay, so I'll be as quick as I can here. And obviously the Evan Decker thing was probably the most significant item of that meeting. We looked at our charter, decided that we liked the wording, language, and structure. The work plan was altered by Monique slightly, and I think it's made it quite acceptable to all of us on the committee. We're going to discuss that a little further on our next meeting. Outreach and attracting attention and marketing for recruitment to CAB is an important part of OCEC, and Monique restructured that process and some of the documentation around it and the approach. And I think she has been very successful, because our next meeting, which is next week, we have 4 candidates to interview with interest in CAB. So excellent work, Monique, in your revamp of the marketing and recruiting process. So that pretty well capitalizes the important things, and everyone has a copy of the agenda. So can we move to the Evan Decker portion of that?
Yes,
Yes.
and Patrice was instrumental in that as well.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Patrice. Well, all of you are doing
It's a
it.
team effort. It's all good. Thank you,
Yeah,
Scott.
yeah, yeah,
Thanks,
cool.
Monique.
Okay, let's move to your recommendation for Evan Decker.
Well, certainly from OCEC, we were extremely impressed. And I'm sure everyone has had a chance to look at this and reviewing for this agenda, for this meeting. We strongly recommend that the full body meeting at this moment accepts Evan Decker as an alternate for the CAB. And do we give him a chance at this meeting to say anything, or is that?
What, maybe what we should do, let's make a motion, then let's have a second, and then let's have a discussion, and during the discussion, he can make some brief comments.
Oh, great. That's a great idea. So I will move, if I may, as the chair of OCEC, that we affirm Evan Decker's membership to the main CAB board.
Is there a second?
I second
I'll
that.
second it. Oh, go ahead.
Crawford, I just want to state that, so is this correct, Patrice, that affirming him to be an alternate on the CAB, or does it make a difference the way it's worded?
Yeah, because alternate members are members of CAB.
Okay.
They're not voting.
Okay, sorry about that. Just wanted to clarify it. Okay.
And of course, with the clarification that then his name would move forward to CCP, right? For their final approval and stamp of approval, that would be. So
That's correct.
yeah. And we had a bunch of seconds there. I heard at least.
So then isn't it just a motion to recommend him to CCP for approval? Because, or I guess I need clarification.
Oh, rather than, why don't, Monique, why don't you give that clarification then?
So I do like the way Terry has stated it. It sounds a little cleaner. So that is exactly what you're doing, is you're recommending Evan Decker to be an alternate. You're recommending it to CCP at their next meeting to approve that he's an alternate on CAB. So I do like the way Terry stated it, and Jill has her hand up.
I'm just not clear that there's an alternate seat available. There are 3 alternate seats that are currently filled. So the only 2 seats that are available are regular seats. So I think the discussion perhaps needs to be who are you recommending for the regular seats and who are you recommending for alternate seats?
I can jump in, Scott, if you like.
Well, yeah, because these are all good points. Go ahead.
So the reason why it's, I have the, at a glance, the way it is because I wasn't able to add Michelle Carter to the previous CCP meeting. If she had made it to the staff report, we would clearly see that there's an alternate position. But in a few previous CAB meetings, the board approved for Michelle to become a full member, voting member on CAB. So because it'll be at the next meeting, so that's why it looks that way. It hasn't been officially approved yet, but Michelle should take one of the seats, and then Evan, upon approval, he will fill that alternate. And then we also have another vacancy that will need to be discussed. And I I don't know if we want to discuss like the next person based on seniority, or due to lack of time, we might want to postpone that conversation, but that's essentially why it looks that way, Jill.
And there'll be a meeting in December of the CCP. So you're lucky that you have back-to-back meetings this time. So it could be taken up at that meeting.
Thank you.
So we had a motion, we had a group of seconds. We've had some discussion. Is there any further discussion as to what we're trying to accomplish?
Can we clarify who the second is? And then also, I don't know if you want Evan to be able to say something because he's been in the meeting. And then we are at 11:57, but I just wanted to share that for consideration.
Well, it would certainly be nice if Evan is still here. Evan Decker should have a moment just to introduce himself, right? If nothing else.
Evan, please, if he's still with us, yes, let's hear from Evan. And let's not get hung up on 12 o'clock. Let's complete our agenda. Let's get through this.
Thank you so much, Mr. Carpenter and Mr. Parsons, for the introduction. Having sat through the meeting, I honestly feel a little late to the party. It's great to hear all the amazing work. It's really fantastic to see many familiar faces here in the group, and very excited to be a part and lend my experience and knowledge, as well as the positionality of the Contra Costa College and our programs and services as well. So I'm super excited to be a part and move forward, and I'll see you all here in the meetings as we go forward.
And let's add one other thing. Thank you so much, Evan. Joel Nickerson Shanks, who is an alternate member currently, brought this applicant to CAB. So we want to thank Joel for stepping up to the plate. Is there any other discussion or public comment?
Evan, I was just wondering if you could speak for a moment about kind of what brings you to a board that's focused on reentry issues and, specifically Elevate programming and AB 109 funding, et cetera.
Thanks so much, Lila. Having been kind of made a bit more aware of the board from Joelle, who's my colleague here at the college, it really aligned a lot of programming and funding resources from the college, specifically in that we have for the past 4 or 5 years been a part of the County Adult Education Consortium, in which we have a position there for the transition specialist. And our previous transition specialist was working very closely with Jenna Evans in the detention facility here in West County, and also attending a number of events, Reentry Success Center, and working with a number of other organizations, particularly within the Contra Costa College service area. In addition to that, working with our folks in alternative education, the Boys Ranch, Mount McKinley as well. It's just a continued effort of the college, and by me working here, also my personal mission to provide as much opportunity and services for folks that are reentering society. Oftentimes that can be participation in an education program or a career education program. It doesn't always have to be, but it definitely helps support the loop around that. So I hope that's good.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Did we know who our second was, or do we need a new second, Scott?
Well, and I just kind of stole the show because really this is Crawford's meeting. So I heard, I thought Nicole Green, am I wrong? Was a second?
It was both me and Lanita. So doesn't matter which one.
Well,
You can take me, it doesn't matter.
yeah. Well, we'll take
I feel
Nicole
the same,
Green because
doesn't
that was my
Okay.
memory of who crossed the finish line just slightly ahead of the others. So, and then of course we'll need a vote, right, Monique?
And when
So-
when I was gonna
Well-
make my second, this is Lanita, when I was gonna make my second, I was gonna also say that I was very impressed with Evan's orientation at our meeting last month. And you got my vote all the way, Evan. I hope you cross the threshold and welcome.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Okay, I can do a vote now, Scott.
Sounds
Um,
good.
Okay, Crawford,
Yes.
Nicole,
Yes.
Lila,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Lanita,
Yeah,
Terry.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. Welcome aboard, Evan,
Thank you so
until
much.
CCP.
Okay. Scott, can you quickly go a brief review of the membership, or it's going to be convoluted right now? How do you want to move forward, Scott?
You know what? I'm pulling. Oh, okay, good. So the document I think was just Are you trying to find that, Monique?
Yes, I am, but I think we kind of went over it based on
Yeah.
Jill's question, so,
Kind of what I thought too, but
yeah.
it probably is a good, just give a quick chance to anyone that maybe sees something here that is not correct.
And also, just for the sake of time, we will be polling everybody as well, so we'll have a more accurate update on what the membership will look like going forward.
Excellent then.
So there it is. I don't think there's any further word from me on this, and we can probably move on just because of time.
Okay, let's move to the next item, programs and services. Lila, bullets, please.
That meeting was canceled because we didn't have quorum.
Okay. Okay. Next item, policy and budget subcommittee. Nicole, bullets, please.
I can get off mute. So I'll make this quick due to time. So a few highlights from our previous meeting. Isaac reviewed purpose and introductions. We had a few announcements in reference to a career fair hosted in September the 28th, which was in Antioch. We are still going over the budget, which I can't wait to this call that's coming up. We had a budget request for the year updated. We talked about Stand Together. And some additional funding coming up November 16th. In 2020, Lila proposed to approve the minutes from Reverend Van Hook. Reverend Van Hook, seconded them. And then we had a presentation from Charles Brown from Workforce Development Board, which I heard was awesome because we had to learn more about the employment piece of it. And then elected to email out charter for feedback so that Crawford can move forward due to time. And I believe, oh yes, and we're definitely going to look back at our work plan again. So that was an item. And as I just mentioned, discuss budget recommendations. So.
Thank you so much, Nicole.
No problem.
Let's move to the next item, and I'm not sure by chance, does anybody have any comments from the Council of Homelessness?
Well, I can just tell you that right now is the time that they're reviewing their notice of funding availability. So they did a big review on that. They also have some special pots of funds that they got from the budget surpluses. And so there's quite a bit of money flowing around there, never enough, but you know, it's just time for those organizations to put in their to get their funding requests in and get funded for the various programs. So
Thank you, Jill. And moving to the next item, is there by
Measure
chance
X,
an
Measure X got
Yes,
canceled.
Jill.
Yeah, Measure X
Yes.
is canceled, so no update.
Okay, Jill, you're saving us. Thank you. Okay, next steps. Monique, are there any next steps that you see, or can we cover this point offline?
I think we can cover it offline. I'll go through the notes with you and the recording, and we can definitely go over it together.
Thank you.
And possibly at the next agenda planning meeting as well.
All right, most appreciated.
Just a couple of things as a preview to your next meeting. As we discussed today, you'll likely be expecting a template of what your budget request will be based on the feedback from the other standing committees. So we'll be looking for you to take action on that. We'll also hopefully have some feedback from you all in terms of how CAB has been going, as well as receiving responses or sharing responses at least about where membership will stand for the next year. And we will also likely begin to gather some info from you in terms of scheduling for your annual retreat next year as well, and see who from that would like to be part of the planning for that piece. And that's it.
And
Thank you.
Crawford,
Yes,
Crawford, I'm sorry, I'd like to just add, I know that you're about to adjourn. And I know in some meetings, I know that you acknowledge Dale Harrington, but some meetings that I've been a part of, we adjourn the meeting in his memory, not necessarily a moment of silence, because you've done that, but definitely adjourn it in his memory. And I'd like to propose that.
no problem. That'll be done. Okay, any other comments? Okay, prior to adjourning, we're just grateful to those of you who are members of this board, and thank you for the privilege of offering your time. Let's continue to stay focused and strive to assist those who might not have the voice that we do in order to affect change. Please think about this. A problem well stated is generally a problem half solved. Thank you for your participation, and let's adjourn this meeting in the memory of Dale Harrington. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, you guys. Have a great day.
You too.